So I pretty much start every yoga session with a little meditation. Find a comfortable seat and I just settle in, take a couple big breaths just to give my body a chance to arrive. And eventually I come out of that meditation and start waking up my body, move my shoulders a little bit, roll them front and back, and then gradually move away from that, roll my neck around a couple times, and pretty much just do any movement here that feels right. It's going to be different every day. Sometimes I'm feeling like I need to stretch or twist or just sit and breathe a little bit longer. But regardless of those moves that I'm doing, as my body is starting to wake up, eventually I make my way to hands and knees and I start doing cat-cow. Cat-cow, basically on an inhale, you arch your back up towards the sky, and on your exhale, your belly drops towards the ground. Arching your back during cat, and then facing forward and dropping your belly during cow. This is just a good way to get the spine activated. And try to keep your legs at a 90-degree angle at the knee while you are raising your back and arching it. But then I start to do some movements with my rear body, my leg. Stretch the calf a little bit before raising my leg up and doing a couple ankle twists. And again, I kind of do whatever feels right. So sometimes I'm lifting my foot as if reaching towards the back of my head. Sometimes I'm reaching my leg out in the opposite direction. Sometimes I'm taking my leg and letting it drift kind of behind me to the opposite side. I'm getting a nice stretch in the low back, the hip flexor area. But whatever I do on one side, I'll go ahead and do on the other side as well. And again, there's no real rule as to what is being done besides making sure that whatever you do on one side, you're doing on the other side as well. Kind of equally paying attention to how it feels on one side compared to the other. And just kind of taking those mental notes as the body starts to warm up. A good habit to get into is always connecting your movements to your breathing. So allowing each movement occupy a space of time that is the duration of an inhale or the duration of an exhale. And then again, doing whatever your body feels like it needs. I'll often stay in this hands and knees position for about 5 to 10 minutes, just waking things up, moving around, doing more cats and cows possibly, but eventually finding my way into what's called child's pose. The feet are together, the knees are splayed outward, the hips drop down towards the heels, and the back falls to the ground, or the chest falls to the ground. The forehead might touch the ground as well. Staying there, breathing, and then gradually making my way to downward dog. In downward dog, you want to do whatever movement feels right at this moment. probably you haven't been in downward dog yet today, so maybe moving the ankles around, allowing if you're like me, your ankles are cracking and popping in this first down dog. And once again, breathing and allowing your shoulders to relax, widening your toes and widening your fingers, and staying here for a few extra breaths before walking your feet or hands towards each other, allowing your body to just dangle for a moment, maybe doing a couple little movements here that feel good before gradually lifting your body up as if moving one vertebra at a time, and then sort of shaking things out, getting your body back to stand. And this is where you're preparing to do some sun salutations. And I always like to do a couple pre-sun salutation movements. I'll start by just raising my arms up as I inhale. So I inhale, raise my arms. Exhale, lower my arms. I'll inhale, raise my arms. Exhale, lower my arms. And I'll do this repeatedly as my body starts to get used to this movement and this connection to breath. And then I'll add a step. I'll inhale, reach my arms up. And this time as I exhale, I'll forward fold. And I'll inhale to a halfway lift, bringing my spine parallel to the ground. Exhale, fold forward. And as I inhale, I reach my arms all the way up. Exhale, arms come back down to my sides. So let's do that again. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale, halfway lift. And this time on the exhale, coming down to plank. Continuing the exhale, lowering the body closer to the ground. Inhale, lifting the chest and shoulders up, upward dog, and exhale, moving into downward dog. Staying here for a breath or two, or as many as you'd like. But at some point on an inhale, you're bringing one of your feet forward between your hands. Exhale, the other foot forward between hands. Inhale, reach your arms all the way up. And exhale, standing there in your mountain pose. One more time, inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale to a halfway lift, spine parallel to the ground. Exhale, hands to the ground, one leg back, second leg back, you're at plank, lowering down. Inhale, chest and shoulders up, upward dog. Exhale, bringing the body to downward dog. Possibly a few breaths here. And at some point, you'll take an inhale and bring one of your feet between your hands. Exhale, the other foot comes to meet it. And on an inhale, you reach the body all the way up, arms rise up. And on your exhale, hands to your side. So you could just do these over and over again if you choose. Doing sun salutations stretches out the body, connects the body to breath, and you can linger in any one of those stops for an extra breath to add more to the sun salutation series. Or you may choose to add more to your sun salutation. So inhale, the arms come up. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale to a halfway lift. Exhale, hands to the ground, body to plank, lowering. And on an inhale, chest rises up, upward dog. Exhale, downward dog. Taking a breath or two here. We are going to add a lunge. Inhale, one foot comes up forward between the hands. And this time, hands come off the ground. You square your hips, making sure the knee is pointing the same direction as the toes. Inhale as your arms rise overhead. Gaze is forward, shoulders relaxed. And at some point on an exhale, hands come down to the ground, following the same flow of upward dog to downward dog. And whatever you do on one side, you do on the other side. So the other leg comes between the hands, finding a good solid stance, paying attention to the knee direction and the toe direction, squaring the hips. The arms come overhead or possibly behind, opening up the chest a little bit more, finding whatever variation feels good for you, trusting that what your body needs, you'll know if you're listening. But eventually letting go of that, hands come back to the ground, moving back through the flow of upward dog to downward dog, taking a few breaths before eventually one of the back legs comes forward between the hands as the body slowly moves through the flow to rise back up with the arms falling to stance. Now, regardless, whatever you do on one side, you ought to do on the other. But in this video, I'm showing you an alternative option for this same flow. So as you move through your sun salutation, slowly making your way to downward dog, this time, instead of moving into lunge, you're going to move into a standing pose. So bringing the foot forward, once again squaring the hips, double checking the knees and toes, and this time making sure the rear foot is planted and shifting the hips so that they face adjacent. Raising the arms out, gazing over the front-facing hand, and then lifting that front-facing hand over the shoulder, bringing the arms back out to the side, straight spine, hands on your hips, locking that front knee, and then with your hips still squared, just allowing the spine to fall towards that front planted foot as the opposite arm rises overhead. So basically this is moving from warrior 3 to reverse warrior to triangle pose, and then flowing through afterwards back to upward facing dog, and then inhaling, bringing your body to downward facing dog. So one more time, inhale, reach up, exhale, fold forward, inhale, flat back, and exhale, bringing the body to plank, lowering, inhale, upward facing dog, exhale, downward facing dog. Eventually on an inhale, one of the legs, one of the feet are going to come forward between the hands, grounding that front foot, grounding that rear foot. You're going to adjust your hips to face the same direction as the chest. Arms extend, front and back. The gaze eventually will come over the front hand. From warrior 3, we move into reverse warrior, allowing the body to fall towards the rear leg, resetting your warrior pose, bringing your hands to your hips, eventually locking that front leg and allowing that hands on the hips pose to just fold towards the front of the body as the rear arm comes overhead. Eventually standing back up into Warrior 3, arms extended, front knee bent, hips square towards the side, and then flowing the body back down into plank. Inhale to upward facing dog and exhale to downward facing dog. Staying here for a few breaths before gradually bringing one of the feet towards the hands, between the hands, the other foot between the hands, body's in a forward fold, and on an inhale, rising the hands up overhead, exhale, coming to stand. Again, whatever you do on one side, you want to do on the other side. But in this case, moving through that sun salutation again, inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, bringing the body to downward facing dog. Staying here for a few breaths before bringing the body back into plank and then lowering the belly and the legs all the way down to the mat, placing the elbows on the mat, hands at a 90-degree angle extended from the elbow, and then lifting the spine, feeling that spine stretch in the low back, maybe up in the shoulders. Breathing while you're here a few breaths before eventually placing the hands in push-up position, lifting the body back up to downward facing dog. And then once again, continuing through the flow, inhaling a foot comes forward, exhale another foot forward. Inhale as the body rises up, and exhale as the hands drop down. One more time, inhale, reach up, exhale, fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, hands on the mat, coming to plank, continuing to lower down. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Staying here for a few breaths, inhaling and exhaling before bringing one foot forward and finding yourself seated on the mat. At this point, inhale, arms come up overhead. Exhale, forward folding, seated. No sense pushing it here, just allowing each subsequent breath to let the body fall a little bit deeper into this fold. Maybe you touch your toes, maybe you don't. Inhale, arms come back overhead, and exhale, relax. Inhale, arms come up. Exhale, hands fall towards your feet. Again, continuing to breathe, inhale and exhale, things loosen maybe a little bit more, but don't push it. Let the body go where it needs to go. Breathing until eventually you inhale and relaxing that pose. And then bringing soles of the feet together as the knees splay outward, finding a comfortable seat here. Possibly even opening up the soles of your feet a little bit wider. Sometimes that allows for a different stretch, but standing or allowing your spine to stand tall. Finding a breath here, deeply inhaling, and maybe on an exhale, letting the body fall forward. And once again, not pushing it, letting each exhale possibly move you closer to the mat, and maybe even adjusting your feet to sit a little bit further out in front of you to make that forward fold feel a little bit different. But staying tuned into your breath. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling, and eventually coming out of that position, feet out in front of you, and then coming back into it with the soles of the feet together, moving through the same stretch once again. Finding that comfortable seat, tall spine, and eventually a big deep breath in as your body folds forward. And maybe this time you keep your spine straight as you lean forward. Or maybe you adjust your feet to sit a little further in front of you, and you allow the spine to curve as it falls between your knees. Sticking with your breath, deep inhale and exhale, and eventually letting go of the pose and bringing one knee in towards the chest. Initially just hugging that knee, nice tall spine, the opposite leg stretched out in front of you, maybe flexing the foot, but grabbing that knee with your opposite arm and spinning or twisting the body towards the back. Draw your gaze behind you before eventually letting that go and switching sides. Knee comes to chest, give it a nice hug. Opposite arm holds that knee in place as the same side arm comes behind you, grounds on the ground, and your gaze goes in that same direction. Getting this nice spinal twist in, keeping the seat flat on the ground, and then letting go. And once again, moving through the same pose again, finding a nice spinal twist on one side, continuing to breathe. A few breaths in each pose, whatever feels right for you. Definitely not rushing through the pose, and then switching sides. So with the twists done, once again finding a comfortable seat before lying flat on your back. And then bending the knees, reaching the hands down to make sure you can touch your heels. And once you can, rising the pelvis up and bringing an arch to the back. So you might even shimmy your shoulder blades a little closer together for a more comfortable position in this bridge pose, but allowing this to stay up for a few breaths before releasing. And then we'll move into a spinal twist with the knees bent once again. Lift one leg up, cross it over the other, and then shift the hips in the same direction as that raised up leg. And then letting the knees fall to one side. Keeping them bent, maybe extending your arms side to side. And then undoing and redoing on the opposite side. One leg crossing over the other. Hips shift in the direction of the original crossed leg. Arms out to the side, and then letting the knees fall to the side. Once again, having another spinal twist before unraveling. And then redoing the whole thing again. Crossing one leg over the other, shifting the hips to one side and letting the knees drop. Getting a nice spinal twist. Trying to keep the shoulders flat on the ground, although that probably won't happen. But just being aware that that's what we're eventually moving towards. And then again, whatever you do on one side, do on the other. One leg crosses over the other, hips shift, and then the knees fall in the opposite direction of the shift. Arms out. Maybe the shoulders are flat, maybe they're not. Breathing, letting each exhale maybe deepen this twist a little bit. And eventually coming out of the spinal twist and doing anything that the body needs at this point to offset the twist, maybe just rolling on your back a little or coming back up to seated. And then we'll move into final meditation. Finding a comfortable seat, adjusting as necessary, maybe closing your eyes or leaving them open, a couple deep breaths, and finishing the session.